Have you ever tried to picture what a billion people actually looks like? I mean, it's a number so massive, it's kind of hard to get your head around. But today, we're going to give it a shot. We are diving into the incredible story of India's population, a story of mind-boggling scale and human geography.
Just take a look at this. We're not just looking at a crowd here. This is a peek into a nation that's home to nearly 1/6 of all humanity. Every single person you see here is part of a story that is just incredibly vast and complex.
So here's the number from the 2011 census. Get ready for it. 1,210,000,000. A number so huge, it's almost meaningless by itself. So let's try to put that into perspective.
Okay, think about this for a second. Imagine you took every single person from North America, then you added everyone from South America and everyone from Australia. All of them. You could fit all those people inside India and still have room. That's not just a cool fact, right? It's a fundamental reality that shapes literally everything in the country, from its resources to its economy.
Which, of course, brings up some pretty big questions, like how does a country even handle a population this big? Where does everyone live? Are they spread out evenly, or are they all bunched up in certain spots? And maybe the biggest question of all, how did it get this way? Well, those are exactly the questions we're going to dig into.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with where people live, then we'll dive into what population density really means. After that, we'll journey through the history of India's population growth, and finally, we'll see how all these pieces click together.
All right, first things first, let's tackle a big misconception. With a number like a billion, you might just imagine the whole country is wall-to-wall people, from coast to coast. But the reality? Oh, it's way more interesting than that.
Check out this map. It really tells a story. See those thick clusters of dots? That's across the North Indian plains and all along the coasts. But then, look up towards the Himalayas in the north, or some of those areas in the middle and west. See how much emptier it gets? This shows you, right off the bat, just how unevenly the population is spread out. So we can see where people are, but that just leads to the next question. Why? Why are some spots so packed with people while others are practically empty? Well, it turns out it's not random at all. It actually comes down to a few key factors. So here's the deal. People tend to gather where life is, well, a little bit easier. You've got your physical factors, flat land, nice weather, and plenty of water are basically people magnets. Then there are the socioeconomic reasons, like big cities with jobs and good transportation. And of course, you can't forget history. Places like river valleys that have been settled for thousands of years, yeah, they're still packed. It's this perfect mix of geography, economics, and time. Okay, so we know where the people are, but how crowded are those places, really? To answer that, we need to get into a really useful idea called population density. Now, it might sound a little technical, but it's a super simple concept. Instead of just counting all the people in a huge area, we look at how many people are packed into a standard-sized box, 1 square kilometer. It gives us a much clearer picture of how much space people have or don't have. And this map shows us that exact same pattern we saw with the dots, just in a different way. The darker the color, the more crowded it is. Look at places like Bihar, West Bengal, Kerala. They're super dark, showing an incredible concentration of people. It lines up perfectly with where we saw all those dots clustered together.
And this really drives home just how extreme the differences are. Up in the mountainous state of Arunachal Pradesh, you have, on average, just 17 people hanging out in a square kilometer. Pretty roomy, right? But then you go to the National Capital Territory of Delhi, and that number just explodes to over 11,000. I mean, that's just wild. It's the same country, but in terms of population pressure, it feels like two totally different worlds.
So, how did India get to this incredible number in the first place? Well, it wasn't some slow and steady climb. The journey to over 1 billion people actually happened in 4 very distinct historical phases.
So the story starts in a period of stagnant growth, where high birth rates were basically canceled out by equally high death rates. Then, as health and sanitation got better, death rates started to fall and the population began to grow steadily. But the real game changer was what's called the population explosion after 1951. Modern medicine caused death rates to just plummet while birth rates stayed high. And now, since 1981, we're in this 4th phase, where the rate of growth is finally, gradually starting to slow down.
And you can see this story right here in the data. Look at 1921. There was actually negative growth. The population went down. Then fast forward to 1971, right at the peak of that explosion, and you see a nearly 25% growth rate in a single decade. By 2011, though, that rate has come down to under 18%, which really shows we're in this fourth phase of slowing growth.
Okay, so we've got all these different ideas floating around. Distribution, density, growth phases. Let's connect the dots and see how we can actually use this stuff. Let's think like geographers for a minute.
Let's try a quick mental exercise. Think about Arunachal Pradesh again. It's a big state but has a pretty small population. Why? Well, it's rugged and mountainous. Now compare that to Bihar, a smaller state but one of the most populous in the country. Why? It's located right on that fertile, flat Gangetic plain that's been a hub for farming and civilization for centuries. This shows so clearly why just looking at the total population isn't enough. Density tells the real story.
So, what are the big takeaways from all this? First, India's massive population is not spread out evenly at all. It's all about clusters and concentrations. Second, those patterns are shaped by that powerful combo of geography, economics, and history. And finally, the story of India's population growth is a dynamic one with 4 distinct chapters, and we're currently in a period where things are gradually slowing down.
And that brings us to one last thought to leave you with. The population is projected to hit 1.35 billion by 2025, a whole new chapter starting. So what does that mean for the future? What are the new challenges and, maybe even more importantly, what are the new opportunities that come with being the most populous nation on the planet? It's a question that's definitely worth pondering.